Breaking news tonight, Americans on virtual lockdown to slow the spread of the coronavirus.
A single moment, your whole concept of life and society can be shaken.
We really want people to be separated at this time.
This week, Americans woke up to a new reality.
Little is off the table in terms of controlling the COVID-19 pandemic.
To unleash the full power of the federal government in this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency. Two very big words.
As people across the country rush to find testing sites, hospitals are being pushed to their limit already by what we've seen. Today, New York's governor sounded the alarm over a shortage of life-saving ventilators.
Please cooperate with us.
It will go down in the history books as one of those moments of true crisis and confusion and chaos.
Schools closed. Performances went dark.
We don't know how long this crisis will last.
These guidelines are very specific. They will only work if every American takes this together to heart.
The numbers are still going up, no matter what you do.
Right.
It's how much up they go that is the issue.
Americans are now sacrificing their normal lives and daily routines, and maybe worst of all, sacrificing a sense of community.
It is how we respond to that challenge that's going to determine what the ultimate endpoint is going to be.
Employees were told to work from home. Some were told there would be no work at all. There are currently more than 9,000 cases of coronavirus across the U.S. The virus has now reached all 50 states, resulting in more than 150 deaths. And the death toll is sure to climb. Public health experts are sounding the alarm that this pandemic is escalating so quickly, it could overwhelm the nation's hospitals and caregivers. This is all unfolding as the country is also preparing for a major presidential election.
So let's begin with the most important issue right now, the coronavirus, and what you would do as president in the face of it.
Sunday's Democratic debate, hosted by CNN, was held without an audience. Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders were at podiums 6 feet apart. They didn't shake hands, and the virus stole the show.
This is bigger than any one of us. This is calls for a national rallying to everybody move together.
We need to move aggressively to make sure that the test kits are out there, that the ventilators are out there, that the ICU units are out there, that the medical personnel are out there.
This week, Arizona, Florida, and Illinois held primaries, but with an increase in drop-off in absentee ballots and a decrease in in-person turnout. And last Friday, Louisiana became the first state to announce that it would be postponing its primary to guard against the spread of the coronavirus.
Today, I have certified that a state of emergency exists and requested that the governor issue an executive order postponing the elections this spring.
In Ohio, where I spent the first part of this week, a fight erupted at the highest levels of government over whether to push back the election. In the end, the governor defied a court ruling and ordered polling sites shut down. On Tuesday morning, I stood outside of the Fairfax Recreation Center in Cleveland, and it was completely quiet. There was no one there for a morning workout, no kids playing ball, and certainly no voting. As a journalist, the only other time I've experienced anything like it was in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, when the silence that fell across the city was deafening and thick, when the city was left a ghost town and so much uncertainty hung in the air. For everyone, it has been a confusing and chaotic week, and because of this virus, democracy will be delayed. I'm Tremaine Lee, and this is Into America, a podcast about politics, about policy, and the power that both have in shaping the lives of the American people. Today, we're heading into the intersection of politics and a pandemic to understand how the spread of coronavirus is changing the 2020 primary season, why some states are taking extraordinary steps, and what it means for voters who are planning to go to the polls.
This is going to affect, I think, a lot of people's determinations on who is going to sit in that Oval Office, not just in this next election, but from now on.
Louisiana was all set to hold its primary on April 4th.
We were actually already in the election process. Absentee ballots had already been mailed out. We'd already received over 20,000 back to the local registrars.
As Secretary of State, Kyle Ardoin, a Republican, is the chief election officer in Louisiana. I reached him by phone earlier this week.
If you could just put this in your ear to record.
Ardoin told me up until a few days ago, his top priority was to make this work, to ensure a free and fair election for the people of Louisiana while not putting the public's health at risk.
And our thought process is, first of all, how can we move forward with this April 4th election, provided that people were already in the process of voting? We would have had to close 32 polling locations across 16 parishes that would have some sort of contact with the vulnerable population, either literally inside a nursing home or a senior citizen center or a direct connection to it. So our thought processes were, well, if we can't deliver a secure election to them, how can we do it to the rest of the state? Supplies were in.
And there was another concern about the people who work to ensure any election goes off without a hitch.
We also looked at all those who volunteer to serve as polling commissioners. And when we looked at the numbers of polling commissioners that are in the vulnerable population of 65 and older, we realized we were putting them at risk without the necessary resources to do the basics within the CDC recommendations.
Was there an actual moment when you said to yourself, we have to do something, and we have to do something now?
Yes, it was. The moment was last week after a unified command group meeting where we visited with the governor and we were trying to move forward. Then the next day I assembled my staff and we started going through the process. My commissioner of elections had already put together what she thought was a viable emergency plan. And the further we went analyzing the plan and making changes to it, the more complicated it became. And if it's becoming too complicated, then it is not the right path, because voting needs to be as simple and as easy and as quick as possible. And so that was my aha moment. We can't put people at risk.
So on March 13th, a major change of plans. Louisiana postponed its primary by more than 2 months, moving it to June 20th. State law requires that the governor, in this case a Democrat, issue an executive order to make the postponement official. Tell me about your first conversation with Governor John Bel Edwards, and was there bipartisan agreement from the beginning about how you all should proceed?
I wasn't able to actually speak directly with the governor because he was at the time, and I wasn't aware of it, dealing with public school closures and discussions about state government operations and all of that. So I spoke with his executive counsel, who I've worked with on numerous occasions, and the very moment that I made that call and said, we really need to talk about postponing the election, there was obvious relief because they too were at that position and of concern about the safety of our citizens. So I think we've made the right decision. We still will be able to provide democracy in the state of Louisiana, and I'm proud of us coming together in a bipartisan manner, worried more about the public health than politics.
This is the third time in recent state history that Louisiana has had to postpone an election. The same decision was made after Hurricane Katrina in 2005, and again after Hurricane Rita in 2008. In both cases, the state had months to prepare. The primary will now be after the June 9 deadline set by the Democratic National Committee. So Louisiana could potentially face a penalty, losing half its delegates for violating the DNC timing rules.
Well, obviously, we won't make that deadline, but I certainly hope that the Democratic National Committee will take into consideration what we're all going through across the nation and in the state, and that this was the only way we really could provide for the public health and still pull the election off prior to the Democratic National Convention, which will give them time to seat the delegates should they waive their rules. I think it's important to note that I brought the concern to the governor's office, and they said that they were willing to deal with that with their party. I did not consult either party chairman or executive director of either party. I made this decision solely for the public health needs of our citizens and the folks that help us put on the elections.
Now, it sounds like you are completely confident that you made the right decision, but was this actually like a difficult decision to make?
It absolutely was. Putting off democracy is not an easy thing to do. This is not an easy thing to go through for anyone. I don't think that I've ever seen I know I haven't seen this sort of thing in my lifetime, and I'm just 52 years old. I'm concerned for my fellow citizens. I'm concerned for my family and for my friends. I'm concerned for my employees. I'm concerned for everyone. And what I want to say to folks is, I read something yesterday that I thought was very poignant. Fear is the enemy of compassion. And we in Louisiana, through natural disasters, take care of our own. We reach out. We know to take care of our neighbors, check on our neighbors, and focus on supporting each other as a community. And I just want to remind folks of that, because we're all, as Americans, in this together. And quite frankly, at this point in time, we're all in this together as a world. We need to focus in on how we can help others get through this as much as ourselves.
So what is all this like for voters? That's after the break. One day after Louisiana postponed its primary, another announcement. 3 states over in Georgia, where the primary was supposed to be next week, March 24th.
Georgia's primary, which was set to happen 10 days from now, has now been moved back 2 months, all due to fears of the coronavirus.
In-person early voting was already underway. A whole new electronic voting system had been rolled out statewide, and then over the weekend, early voting was suspended, and the state moved its primary to May 19th. Just as Winfrey Young was deciding whether to vote early, her polling place was closed.
I was absolutely excited about voting in this primary because one of the things that I preach to my sons, I have 3, my husband and I have 3 sons, is the importance of the vote.
Winfrey is 59 years old, she lives in Atlanta, and she's a left-leaning independent.
That's the one thing that is the equalizer across the board. Everyone has one vote, and you go stand in line and you get it done. It crosses all boundaries. And this is a very, very important election that's coming up.
And she told us that while she understands the state's decision, she's worried about it too.
I am worried about the turnout in Georgia for a number of reasons. I'm worried about apathy of the people, particularly the younger people. I'm worried about the seniors feeling like it would really and truly impact their health, especially if they're compromised anyway. I'm worried that people will just feel like this is some kind of conspiracy and won't go out to the polls to vote just because they're tired of all of this seemingly back and forth between government officials and the community. I mean, there are so many factors at play right now that could make people not vote that I just don't want to see the virus being used as an excuse.
For Winfrey, this whole ordeal has been a reminder that when she goes to vote in the general election, she needs to think about who she wants leading the country during a crisis.
This makes me look back at some of the things Biden has said, look back at some of the things Bernie has said, and say to myself, do they really have a handle on what's going on now, and would they have a better handle on this than what's happening in the White House right now? We're looking for some stability right now, and I think that coming in November, people are going to be voting not for a person, but for stability.
The impact of the coronavirus when it comes to our healthcare, our economy, and our politics won't be fully known for a while. The leading Democratic candidates have canceled in-person rallies and are hosting virtual campaign events. That means there won't be as much FaceTime with the very voters they're hoping to court ahead of November. And President Trump, well, he'll be judged on his handling of this crisis. In regular briefings, he's tried to assure the country.
We will significantly reduce the threat to our citizens, and we will ultimately and expeditiously defeat this virus. And we are responding with great speed and professionalism. Our team is the best anywhere in the world.
A new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll out this week proves that the stark political divide that existed before the outbreak, well, it's still there. 81% of Republican voters approve of Trump's handling of the issue, while 84% of Democrats disapprove. Independents, they're split. 43% approve, 52% don't. There's also this big question that's sort of looming over all of us. What happens come November? Could the election be postponed? The answer is probably not. The date for the general election is set by federal law, and it's been the same since 1845. Changing the date would require Congress to pass a new law, and the president would have to sign it. And even if that happened, there'd likely be a challenge in the courts. Plus, the Constitution requires that the new Congress must be sworn in on January 3rd and the new president on January 20th. It would take a constitutional amendment to change that. All of this, highly unlikely. But then again, who would have thought American politics would be trying to outrun a virus?
I don't see that folks need to be looking at November right now.
In Louisiana, Secretary of State Kyle Ardoin is taking things one day at a time, which is the best most of us can do right now.
I think we need to focus in right now on everything that we can do to fight this. We're social creatures, and this is something odd for us to have to deal with. But I think certainly praying and utilizing our faith and support, and still remembering that we're part of a community is an important part of this, and then we can worry about politics later.
Into America is produced remotely this week by Isabel Angel, Allison Bailey, Aaron Dalton, Max Jacobs, Barbara Rabb, Claire Ty, Aisha Turner, and Preeti Varathan. Original music by Hannes Brown. Our executive producer is Ellen Frankman. Steve Lichtai is executive producer of audio. I'm Tremaine Lee. Stay safe, stay healthy, and remember, we're all in this together. We'll be back next Thursday.